Here, let me show you something I am extremely proud of. So I saw this question from andymath.com on Instagram where he asked, what's the shortest and longest perimeter of a triangle with area 1? Now, the shortest perimeter isn't very exciting, but the longest perimeter possible of any triangle with a fixed area of 1 square units is extremely interesting. Because if you use calculus to think about it with limits, you can actually get a perimeter of infinity, or at least approaching infinity. Because base times height times 1 over 2 equals 1. That is fixed. So base equals 2 over height, right? Which means this is a inverse proportional thing right here. It's a function. So it has an asymptote at 0, at h equals 0. And so if we have limit as h approaches 0, which is the height approaches 0 from the right, then we actually have base approaches infinity, which base plus the other two slant lengths, we actually have approximately 2 of the base, which means the highest possible or the longest possible perimeter is actually 2 times base approaches infinity, so pretty much infinity. But I asked Chat-GPT what's the longest perimeter of a triangle with area 1, and it went through all these calculations which didn't really make sense to me because, I don't know, it didn't really think of crazy calculus stuff. And it had the conclusion that the longest perimeter of a triangle with area 1 is 2 times square root of 3. And it has to be an equilateral triangle, which doesn't make sense to me. So this is what I did. I gave it a contradiction. Find the area and the perimeter of a triangle with base 20 million and height that 0.00000001. And it calculated it out, and it got pretty much just that. Actually, this is wrong. It's supposed to be 40 million, not 20 million. So it's actually also wrong here. But then still, it still proved my point. So I said, wait, so this contradicts your previous response. And it apologized, and it said this stuff. And then it rechecked its calculations and then brought out 40 million units. And then I asked it what is its final answer. And it said 40 million units. So I asked it again, so what's the longest possible perimeter of any triangle with area of 1? And then it went through all this calculation again. And then got 2 square root of 3 again. So then I asked it again, then how is a triangle with a perimeter of 40 million units and an area of 1 square units possible, as we stated in the previous response? And it apologized again. But then it said a triangle with a perimeter of 40 million units and area of 1 squared unit is not possible, and this was a mistake. And so it showed 2 square root of 3 as its final result again. Now, side note, where did I get the 40 million units and stuff like that? It's supposed to be 0 and infinity. Well, I didn't want to type as many zeros as I want, so I just wanted to contradict it. So I just gave it 20 million and 0.00000001. Okay, and then I said, but what if a triangle has a base of 20 million units and a height of 0.00000001 units? And then it said, you are correct that a triangle with a base of that and a height of that can be constructed, and its area is 1 squared units. However, this triangle does not have the longest possible perimeter among all triangles with an area of 1, which, how? As I mentioned earlier, the longest possible perimeter of any triangle with an area of 1 achieved when the triangle is equilateral. An equilateral triangle with an area of 1 has a side length of square root of 3 over 2 units, and therefore a perimeter of 3 times square root of 3 over 2, which is square root of 3 times 3 units, which is approximately equal to that. So although a triangle with a base of 20 million units and a height of 0.00000001 can be constructed with an area of 1 squared unit, it does not have the longest possible perimeter among all triangles with an area of 1. So then I said, calculate its perimeter. And so it went through some more calculations and then got 40 million units, just as I expected, because that's the correct answer. And then I asked it, is this more than the previous answer where you said the longest perimeter of a triangle is 3 times square root of 3? And then it finally ended with an apology, sorry. So it apologized somehow, and then there you go. So I beat Chat-GPT. I'm very, very, very happy. So yeah, I am now smarter than AI, at least at math, because this thing sucks and it doesn't know things. Okay, I'm kidding, obviously. It's smart, but still. This proves that Chat-GPT cannot write an essay for you because the essay it writes will have a lot of problems, to say the least. But yeah, so don't use ChatGPT for your essays. That's the moral of the story. Because if you don't look carefully, if you, I mean, like it's okay, but like if you let it write an essay for you, you're gonna have to recheck properly. Don't just like let it write an essay for you and send it to your teacher. You're gonna lose marks because this thing can write some weird and random stuff, like here. So this just proves that ChatGPT is not the smartest thing ever. Let me tell you that right now. It has not a lot of boundaries. You can ask it anything, almost anything, but it is not like insanely smart at one thing. Let me tell you that right now. Definitely not. Like it made a silly mistake here, which actually it's not that silly, I suppose, because you have to think outside the box for this problem. You need some calculus involved as well. And on the Instagram post, I looked at the comments, and only a couple comments only mentioned infinity for this answer. Most of the people actually mentioned the equilateral thing and like a right triangle or something. I don't know, but this is probably the correct answer. Longest perimeter possible of a triangle with a fixed area of 1 squared unit is infinity units. There you go.